The demon I summoned was a great listener until it asked for my wife. I haven't slept in my own bed for a week. The cold started in the corner of the room, a damp, persistent chill that the thermostat couldn't touch. Now it feels like it's coming from inside me. Serena says it's just the old house settling, the first bite of autumn. She doesn't feel it. For her, the world is still warm. It all started the day I cleared out my grandfather's things from the attic. He was a history professor, a man obsessed with forgotten moments and the spaces between them. Most of his stuff was what you'd expect: boxes of brittle books, research notes on crumbling paper, maps of places that no longer exist. But in the bottom of an old steamer trunk, I found something else. It wasn't a grimoire bound in human skin or some other gothic bullshit. It was a simple ledger, thick and bound in cracked black leather. There was no title. The pages were filled with his handwriting, a precise, almost surgical script. It wasn't a diary, it was a lab notebook. He wasn't researching history, he was researching silence. He had a theory that in places of absolute, profound quiet, things could be heard. Not sounds, but presences. He called them hollows. Beings that exist in the negative space, drawn to a vacuum of sensory input like moths to a flame. The book wasn't a manual for summoning them. It was a warning. A detailed, terrified record of how to stay unnoticed. How to fill your life with enough noise, enough distraction, that they would never find the handle to your door. My life had become very, very quiet. The root cellar seemed like the perfect place to test his theory. A stone box under the house, always cold, always dark. I told Serena I was setting up a space to meditate. She'd been on my case about my stress levels for months. She smiled, relieved. Whatever helps, Kian. She had no idea. It wasn't about pentagrams or chanting. It was about deprivation. I spent an afternoon lining the stone walls with sound-dampening foam I bought online. I sealed the cracks in the heavy oak door with weather stripping. The goal, according to my grandfather's notes, was to create a space so dead that you could hear the blood moving in your own veins. For the first few nights, it was just that. An unnerving, total silence. I'd sit on a stool in the middle of the floor for an hour, focusing on the thump in my chest, the whisper of air in my lungs. I wasn't trying to call anything. I just wanted to feel something, anything. I think I wanted to prove the old man and his strange obsessions wrong. Then, on the fourth night, the silence changed. It stopped being an absence of sound and became a thing in itself. A heavy blanket pressing in. The air grew thick, resistant. I felt a pressure in my ears, the kind you get when you dive too deep in a pool. I fled, my heart hammering against my ribs, and didn't look back. The next day, I had to know. I forced myself to open the cellar door. The air that washed out was frigid. And on the dusty floor, I saw it. Not a footprint, something stranger. The fine layer of grime had been disturbed into patterns, perfect interlocking spirals like galaxies drawn by a child's finger. It was beautiful, and it was wrong. Something with a mind had been in there. That night, I went back. I sat on my stool, surrounded by those impossible patterns, and I spoke. Not with my voice, but in my head. A silent, bitter stream of consciousness. I thought about my father and the way his disappointment still felt like a physical weight on my shoulders. I thought about the promotion I was passed over for at work. I poured every frustration, every petty grievance, every ounce of my quiet desperation into the heavy, listening silence. The cold intensified. The silence felt attentive. It felt like it was drinking my misery. And when I left, I felt lighter. Emptied. A few days later, Serena and I were in the kitchen, arguing. I don't even remember what about. Money, I think. The usual. In a fit of stupid, childish anger, I slammed my palm down on the stovetop. Not the burner, but the hot metal edge next to it. Searing pain shot up my arm. I screamed, a raw, guttural sound. Serena gasped. My hand was raw, red, already starting to blister. And in that moment of agony, a thought that was not my own bloomed in my mind. A cold, clinical command. Let me. From the floorboards beneath my feet, I felt a wave of impossible cold rush upwards, the same frigid pressure from the cellar. It washed over me, through me. The burning in my hand didn't just stop. It was erased. I stared, dumbfounded, as the blisters shrank, the angry red flesh fading to its normal pale color in seconds. It was perfect, unmarred. I looked up at Serena. Her face was white. She had seen it. She saw the burn, the blistered skin, and then she saw it vanish as if it had never been. How, Kian? How did you do that? She whispered, backing away from me, her hand over her mouth. I had no answer. That was the moment she started looking at me like a stranger. My boss, Patroclus, called me into his office last week. He gave the promotion I'd been working towards for 2 years to his nephew, smiled while he did it, said it was about a fresh perspective. I didn't say anything. I just nodded, walked out, and drove home in a haze of fury so potent it made my vision swim. I didn't go into the house. I went straight to the cellar. I didn't project my anger this time. I unleashed it. I pictured Patroclus's smug face, his condescending tone. I didn't wish him harm, not in so many words. I just focused on the injustice, the sheer grinding unfairness of it all. I gave it all to the cold. The next morning, Patroclus didn't come to work. He was in a freak accident. A piece of rebar fell from a construction site 2 blocks from his apartment and speared the roof of his car, missing his head by inches. He wasn't dead. He just wasn't Patroclus anymore. The doctor said he had a profound brain injury. He would need to be cared for, like a child, for the rest of his life. When I heard the news, a familiar chill ghosted down my spine, and a thought surfaced in my mind, a thought that carried the deep, resonant finality of a judge's gavel. Order restored. It's in the house now. I know it is. It's not confined to the cellar anymore. Sometimes I see it in my peripheral vision, a tall, impossibly thin distortion in the air, like heat shimmer on a winter day. It has no face, but I feel its attention on me constantly, a cold, analytical regard. My grandfather called them hollows, but I've started to think of it as nomos, the law. A new, terrible kind of law. It showed me what it wanted, not in a vision, but an impression. A deep, cold understanding. It wanted a gesture of faith, a symbol that I was choosing its order over the old world. It wanted me to burn one of my grandfather's books. Not the ledger, but one of his published, respected works on Roman history. A piece of the man the world knew, the man who pretended the silence was just silence. I did it. I took the book down to the cellar and lit it on fire in the center of the spirals. The flames burned without heat, a column of shimmering blue light that cast no shadows. The distortion in the corner of the room seemed to solidify, to drink the cold fire. It grew darker, sharper, more real. Serena found the charred remains of the book. "What is wrong with you?" she screamed, her voice shaking. She'd been doing her own research. She'd found articles online about my grandfather, about his dismissal from the university for his unorthodox theories. "It's that cellar, isn't it?" she said, her eyes wide with a fear that was finally turning to resolve. "It's his madness. You've let it in." She said she was going to clear it out, that she was going to smash the foam, open the door, and let the light and the noise back in. She started for the cellar door. I moved to block her. "Don't," I said. My own voice sounded strange to me. Flat. Cold. "Get out of my way, Kian." We stood there at the top of the steep stone steps. The door was ajar, and a palpable cold was pouring out, wrapping around my legs. The rage I felt wasn't mine. It was a clean, pure, logical fury. She was chaos. She was an error in the system. An injustice that needed correction. I pushed her. I swear to God, I didn't mean to push her hard. It was just a shove, a warning. Get away from the door. But my arms moved with a strength that wasn't my own. The force of it was sickening. She flew backwards, her feet leaving the floor. Her scream was cut short by a sound I will hear every night for the rest of my life. A wet, final crack as her head hit the stone floor at the bottom of the stairs. Then, silence. I stared down at my hands. My hands. they had done that. At the bottom of the steps, the shadow that was Nomo's uncoiled from the corner and flowed over her body. It wasn't eating her, it was absorbing. It drank the event itself, the violence, the shock, the sudden, terrible end. And most of all, it drank my horror. My guilt was a feast. It is with me now, always. A cold passenger behind my eyes. It never had to possess me. It just gave me the strength to break my own world, and now it feeds on the ruins. I am not its door. I am its garden. It cultivates my despair. The power is still there. I can feel the world outside, a fragile, flawed thing I could reshape with a thought. But I know that any change I make will only create a new tragedy, a new injustice for Nomos to correct, a new meal to be served cold. I'm writing this down in my grandfather's ledger, on the first blank page after his last terrified entry. I don't know why. A warning, maybe. A confession. Sometimes, late at night, I hear a sound from the cellar, a whisper that sounds like Serena. It calls my name, but I know it's not her. It's just the cold, and it's learning to use her voice.